Good evening. Welcome to this day. My name is Andrew Mwansa. Tonight, we discuss issues around the overpricing of road contracts, but also we discuss the debt portfolio of the National Road Fund Agency, as we also delve into looking at Zambia's debt in general, but also look at the state of the economy. Now, in Zambia, the cost of constructing roads has been a subject of much discussions and debate. While it's tempting to assign a simple price tag to a kilometer of road, a more comprehensive analysis is needed to avoid over simplification and ensure there's a clear understanding of the factors influencing the construction of roads and their costs. There have been allegations to the effect that many roads and other infrastructure contracts were overpriced by the previous administration. Recently, the National Road Fund Agency disclosed that paying for penalties of unfulfilled contractual obligations and other breaches has seen the agency's debt portfolio rising to over 15 billion US dollars. Tonight, billion kwacha. Tonight, I'm privileged to be joined in by economist as well as NRFA Board Chairman, Mr. Noel Nkhoma, as we discuss these issues and many other issues that are affecting our country. Chairman Nkhoma, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Andrew. It's nice to be back. And also, I wish to thank the viewers who have joined us this evening. And as always, I'm always happy to be here. And I hope that the time that we have together, we should be able to unpack a lot of things. And I think information shared benefits the public. Because right now we have evolved as a country of propaganda where people can throw information, figures without validation. So I think it's our responsibility, those of us who have been given the rare honor and privilege to lead these institutions, to be able to put the facts as they stand.
Well, you two at home could be a part of the conversation by calling us on the numbers that are going to be scrolling on your screen. But also later on, we're going to make our Facebook page live for you to comment as the program progresses. You were recently appointed to this position as chairman of this very important institution. How are you settling in as board chairman?
Well, I once again want to thank you. It's the first time you're appointing me, you are inviting me as a board chairperson for NRFA. I found a board which was functional, and I only had to fit in a slot that was available. So it's not like we are beginning as a fresh start, all of us. There was a board which had served, and I just want to thank my colleagues who I found on the board for the safe or smooth landing, so to speak. So it was a question of just picking up the pieces and running. So we are running, we are making progress, and I think our aspiration is to restore the integrity and credibility of the National Road Fund Agency. And I just also want to acknowledge the work that the previous board chairpersons have put in to make it an institution that it is. The previous boards and also management. It's not that we're creating a new entity. This entity has been there before, and all we are just doing is to build on what our colleagues before us were able to achieve.
Yours is a very huge task, Mr. Nkhoma, because the board you're sitting on really, pays oversight on all road sector finances. Tell us the position you found the board on, and some of the challenges that the board is the agency is currently facing.
Yes, I think as you earlier alluded to, it's a debt issue, right? And I say it over and over and again. When we contract in good faith, people who deliver legitimate service or a product, and in this case a road, should be paid as and when they deliver that value to the public.
That's true.
Right? We have a situation where there was over-contracting of roads. There was a situation where I believe, I'm not a qualified engineer, but from colleagues who are in this space, they share what I think, and I've suspected that we could have overpriced these roads. And why do I say so? I have the benefit to sit on the PPP Council of Ministers, and we have been able to reduce or bring down the cost per kilometer bituminous road at an average of 500,000. If it's maybe above, definitely not more than $600,000 per kilometer. Previously, we're talking about $1 million. So this, by and large, tells you the story around the 18 billion kwacha, which currently is debt, both local and owed to both local and foreign contractors. Now, if you...
And this is for a period of how long?
Well, this is legacy debt which we inherited. So it stretches in the last...
administration.
The last administration, the full 10 years. Right, because I think there was a link, 400 and many other road projects. And 18 billion, Andrew, is something closer to almost $700 million. So this is not a small issue, it's a big issue. People who could have legitimately provided a service or delivered a road to government may have found themselves in a very difficult situation because of failure to pay this debt. You can imagine a situation whereby one goes to the bank to borrow. Look at the interest rates now sitting around 27. I can promise you that many people have been more or less inconvenienced by what you call foreclosures. People have lost properties. People have basically been consigned to destitution because to undertake a road project requires a lot of money.
What explains why this debt has ballooned in the context of why these people are not being paid? Is it lack of availability of resources?
Yes, the resource envelope. Are you forgetting, Andrew, that in the last regime, and I hate to refer to PF because to me, we should not use PF as a benchmark. But I'm forced to say it because why did we go into a debt standstill? There was no money. The treasury was depleted to the point that you kept on contracting road contracts to be able to hoodwink the public that indeed you are delivering value, delivering infrastructure. All what used to happen, you pay them an upfront payment, I don't know whether it's 20, 30%, and you abandon the contractor. What does the contractor do? The way those contracts were crafted, the penalties were huge, or rather huge, right? And that probably also explains how we found ourselves at 18 billion. So,
but the PF are coming out very clean on this, that, look, when you throw a stone in Lusaka, the probability that it's going to land on a tarmac is very high.
But did you pay for that tarmac? And what is the quality of that tarmac? There are roads in Lusaka which are failing. Is it the Tokyo, what you call the Tokyo ring road? It's failing. It's not only that one. Where I live myself, on the district road into Gwerere, it is failing. When was it done? Under 10 years ago. So was the pricing around figures of about $1 million per kilometer delivered value for the quality of roads? The answer definitely is no. So contracting is one thing, but being able to pay is another. So we should have matched.
You come in with a very good debate around at what amount should a road, for example, a kilometer road costs. But maybe try explain to the Zambian people tonight what technicalities, or factors really influence the costing of a road.
Yes, and
because the PF would give justifications. Even on the Lusaka and Ndola dual carriageway, whilst you have got all this data that you're giving the people, the PF also are coming with their own data that, look, this is what is supporting our arguments.
I said it, Andrew, in the beginning. We managed to bring down the cost per kilometer, averaging $500,000 per kilometer. Why? It's because we had to interrogate those figures, right? And for us to be able to procure Lusaka and dual carriageway at around $550,000 per kilometer, speaks to the integrity of the figures. So I may not be an engineer in terms of to break it down in terms of components, a civil engineer, but from where I sit, I have the benefit to understand that a road like Lusaka and Ndola can be procured far less than what used to obtain, right, in the past. Now, it can speak to two things, right? I'm just assuming. Either you agreed at a high cost knowing that you were not going to pay, right? All you wanted was a road to be constructed, but at the back of your mind, you knew that there was no money to pay it. So let it be, whoever is inconvenienced, it was none of your business. That is the conversation we're having today. 18 billion debt, right? So if you are desperate, you agree.
But also on this date, there's arguments that a huge chunk of this date, is owed to the locals, the Zambians, because the argument also that is there, Mr. Nkhoma, is that the board or the agency is prioritizing Indians and Chinese that, we had contracted, and the local contractors, the indigenous Zambians, are not given the money.
Yes, it's a pity that I can't mention the names. From the time I was appointed on the board, and I know it has been a practice in the past, Zambian contractors are always favored in all payments to contractors. Coincidentally, I've got the figures here. From January 2024 right up to May, a total of 1.6 billion kwacha has been paid to contractors, both for current road projects and legacy road projects. And out of this, 954 million, almost a billion, which represents about 60%, has gone to Zambian contractors. Here. 681 million is what has gone to foreign contractors. So if you say that the NRFA is favoring foreign actors, the figures don't lie. It's here.
Contractors have been crying, Mr. Nkhoma.
Yes.
In fact, the other argument is that many of you say that, in fact, even the president is on record that these people supplied air, or these people, got these contracts in a dubious way and belong to the patriotic front, and so you're punishing them by not giving them what rightfully belongs to them.
We are paying. That I can promise you. We are paying, and if I had the right to disclose those who have been paid during the short time that I've been there, from the legacy debt, from road procurements which were done under PF, I would have mentioned them. We are a state body, and we have to respect whether the contract was dubiously procured or not. We have to respect that there was a contract.
So all these contractors eventually are going to be paid.
They'll be paid. And we have got a plan which we have activated to ensure that first is a validation. There is a process which started by the Road Development Agency, by the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. Mind you, NRFA is not a contracting agency. We have no business with contractors in as far as contracting is concerned, or signing of contracts. NRFA is a paying agent for these other road sector players, whether it's RTSA, RATSA, whether it's Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, and whether it's RDA. That is the more reason why we are saying that based on what these entities profile and give to NFI, depending on the resource envelope, people are being paid.
Are you at least able to pen to us a percentage of those that have been paid in terms of legacy matters and those that are new but have been paid? Which ones, where is the money going mostly to?
Yes, it's mostly going to current contracts. And I'll tell you why, Andrew. We are talking about a legacy debt here. It's a legacy debt. Why? It's because we did not pay attention. At the time when contracts were being delivered, IPCs were being generated, money was not there to pay them. We recognize that, yes, they could have delivered, but we have to find the money to pay them. So what we are doing is that to avoid a repeat of creating another legacy debt, the current projects, we are trying to keep up with the pace to ensure that there's no backlog. We have learned a lesson in terms of this 18 billion we're talking about. We don't want it to happen on contracts which are new and ongoing.
Do you have targets to dismantle that 18 billion?
We have got targets. The target is that, God willing, all things being equal, by December,
everyone must have been paid.
We must have found a solution around this in terms of payments. And what we want to do, at an opportune time, we have one-to-one discussions with the contractors. And at this moment in time, Andrew, we cannot rule out the possibility of haircuts. We can't rule that out.
But these have to be negotiated with the contractors.
So when you try to apply the principle of opportunity cost, a bird in hand is better than one or two in the bush. So we need to have a serious conversation with our contractors to the extent that there's a desire to pay them, but they have to help us to pay them.
Speaking about debt, another big issue is around Zambia's debt restructuring. We've gone at about 77% with managing to restructure our debt. We still remain with the other percentage. How far are we in terms of this, debt restructuring?
I think you must have seen the reaction on, the statement by Moody's. The markets are now excited that Zambia has almost crossed the hurdle in terms of debt restructuring, and that speaks to a new dawn on the horizon. Things are beginning to look up. There's now hope and brighter prospects for Zambia, because the world which had shut down on us is now opening up. So,
and I want you to make sense before we can come to the figures. Mr. Nkhoma, in 2020 when we defaulted.
I think we defaulted. I think 2020. I think.
Yes, during the COVID pandemic, we were the first African country to default.
Yes.
We stopped paying any loan. Wrong or right?
Yes, it was a debt standstill.
So that meant that every resource
now,
that
we are still on a debt standstill.
Yes, that meant that every resource that we had was going into the economy, isn't it?
But the economy was contracting. So what resource do you have? The mines were closing. There was no. There's no industry to talk about.
Yeah, but still we're not paying anything towards our debt.
Yes, Andrew. I want you to hear me right.
Yeah.
Now, how?
The question I was coming to is that how are things going to become better when now we've fully restructured our debt? Because when we fully restructure our debt, then we need to begin to pay slowly towards these debt obligations.
Yes.
So which one is better? Where we're not paying and where we're going to be paying now?
Yes, we're going to be paying. Why? It's because the international capital markets are now opening up for Zambia. I am aware that the IMF has, not the IMF, the capital markets have taken this announcement that the private creditors have agreed to sign up with the optimism, meaning that the inflows, right, in terms of foreign direct investment, in terms of investment in our government securities, will probably double, right? Already we're seeing things unfolding on the copper belt. Whether we like it or not, as an import dependent and more or less a mono economy dependent on copper, we cannot ignore the equation. I mean, the impact in terms of the copper mines on the equation, in as far as Zambia's economy is concerned. So we are seeing the president going in and out of the copper belt. Probably in the last 6 months, the president has been to copper belt almost every other 2-3 weeks, right? He is trying to reboot this economy. And we have to recognize that issues around cost of living are a factor of the exchange rate, whether we like it or not. Right? We're an import-dependent economy. So for us to deal with the cost of living, let us first deal with the source of that foreign exchange, right? The mining. You have seen what is happening at Mopani. You have seen what is happening at Luansha. You have seen the announcement about in the next 2 weeks, the KCM is about to start delivering value. So Luvambe mine again, there's a new investor there. So many things have begun to happen Unfortunately, we're hit by a shock, the drought, right? After pumping in so much money in the agriculture sector, we opened the credit window. Commercial banks came in a big way to support our farmers. There was the FISIP of over $500 million. We're hit by drought. That has pushed us back, right? But what is important, Andrew, is the fact that the economy is much, much more stable.
Much more stable. I still haven't gotten my answer on how the restructuring, the completion of restructuring of our debt is a precursor for economic takeoff.
But I've mentioned about FDI. Who would want to invest in a country which is in debt default? Who would want to invest? Do you know that the lines of credit for commercial banks, international lines of credit, were shut down because of the default?
Over billions of dollars have gone into the cupboard in terms of investment in the mining sector. But the impact is not felt.
No. First of all, mining is not a one-day event, right? You have to invest in mining for you to be able to begin to produce, right? So there's so many things that have to go into mining. We are talking about Mopani. Yes, there are so many things that have to do with recapitalization, with investing in production and so on. So the effect, like what I said,
a long term.
No, it's not a long term. We must begin to get the value or the benefits by end of 2024, early 2025. We must begin to get value. Yeah. So what we are saying here is that there are so many things that are being done in the background. Yes, the energy crisis has hit us, but there's work that has gone into there, which is still going on to be able to resolve the energy crisis once and for all. So the moment we get our fundamentals right in terms of the mining, in terms of the energy, in terms of agriculture, what does it do? That speaks to productivity.
And you're saying that we're pointing in the right direction.
We are talking about productivity in the economy. We are talking about moving our people from absolute poverty to basic poverty. We are talking about food security. We are talking about a reduction in the cost of living. Because first of all, when we talk about the cost of living, in the absence of productivity in the economy, there's no way that you can be able to afford to pay your employees or your workers a living wage.
You're on record, Mr. Nkhoma, the president and many other UPND officials, stating that the previous government recklessly borrowed.
It's a fact.
And they ran down the economy.
Yes.
But also there's...
To the point of shutting us down from the
there's another
international
school of Scott that just under 3 years of the UPND being in office, you've borrowed recklessly, even more than the PF borrowed within 5 years. You've borrowed over $6 billion.
It's a lie. It's a lie, Andrew. And I will demonstrate that what my colleague, Emmanuel Mamba, is saying is not true. What has been borrowed is 1.5 billion.
The 2 and 8 months. It's 1.2 billion.
Now, let me explain to you. Now, where does this money come from? From multilateral lending agencies. Those who have been working with us, supporting us to achieve debt restructuring. The IMF, the World Bank, the Africa Development Bank. And mind you, we are shareholders of these institutions. They are our institutions. So we have got not only an interest, but also an entitlement to benefit. These are multilateral lenders. When the international market shuts you out, you fall on multilateral lenders. As long as you're able to demonstrate that what you are doing is in good faith and you are going to deploy these resources to benefit the Zambian people. They don't lend and give a blank check to spend in whatever way you want. Like the Eurobond. You get the money, you are not accountable to anyone. These are funds that have been procured from the IMF, World Bank, and Africa Development Bank with a very clear socio-economic impact program. For example, education. For example, health, agriculture, balance of payment support, budgetary support, very clear.
And the previous borrowing was not very clear in terms of the definite.
So now, let me just finish, Andrew. You are saying that we borrow 1.5 billion. I can account, if you allow me.
Go ahead.
Right? First of all, IMF, how much has been borrowed? There are 3 disbursements that have been made under IMF from the time we qualified for what we call extended credit facility. Right? In August 2022, there have been 3 disbursements of $187 million each. How much have we got? $561 million. And this money, how it has been applied, we talk about CDF. You talk about bursaries. You talk about meal allowances. You talk about decentralization, devolution, and so on. And also, most importantly, money which went to help support and stabilize the kwacha. Had it not been for this intervention, we would have been talking at a kwacha to dollar rate of almost 50. Do you know what that does to the cost of living? It would have been worse than it is now. So this is the IMF. Now you may ask me, at what percent? 0, if not 1% to the most.
What's more concerning to me is not at what percent that we're contracting this debt, because we're going to pay back regardless of the percentage.
But these are concessional loans.
But my concern really, Mr. Nkhoma, is these monies that we're congolating are going towards consumption. You talk of social sectors.
But I told you that...
What productive area
first of all,
put this money?
Let me just take you to what has been procured from the World Bank, right? $275 million. What is it for? Macroeconomic stability. These are the monies which are going to be deployed towards what you call the farming blocks, opening up the agriculture sector, dams, bridges, roads. So when you're talking about consumption, what does it? What do these things speak to consumption? They're talking to productivity, rebooting the economy, so that at the end of the day we become food secure, right? You talk about, for example, issues to do with CDF. That is not consumption. We're delivering on CDF. Every day there are stories in terms of what the impact that CDF is having, how our people are being taken out of poverty, becoming self-sufficient in terms of, in as far as their livelihoods are concerned. So this is something that you are seeing. The impact is something that you are seeing, you can touch, you can feel. This is not money going into consumption. Talking about teacher recruitment, are we talking about consumption? We need human capital to be able to move this economy to another level. Health workers, 60,000 plus. These are the same monies. So where is the consumption there? There's a teacher deficit. You want to hold back on spending simply because you'll be seen to be spending on something? No.
It's a long-term project, though.
Yes. So all these things speak to rebooting the economy. And that is why there's stability in the economy now. We can be able to plan, and it's predictable.
Maybe explain to the Zambians tonight, Mr. Nkhoma, when you say there's stability in the economy, when the fuel prices are high, when electricity tariffs have increased, when literally the cost of living has unprecedentedly gone high. Now, even the 3 highest notes in this country can't buy a bag of meal. Explain to the Zambians why these numbers are making sense to you, but not making sense to the Zambians.
Yes, the cost of living, as I mentioned earlier, Andrew, if today you don't have a job, right, a bag of meal, which is probably maybe 200, 300 kwacha, becomes expensive. Are you with me? Right? It's an issue of affordability, right? The moment we get this economy growing again, get our people into employment, begin to pay meaningful wages, then the issue of cost of living is more or less addressed. The problem that we're having right now is that the economy has not been growing at a pace that would have wanted it to grow, right? Because for this economy to be able to create the opportunities, the wealth, the employment, the employment opportunity for our people, we need to push growth in almost double digits. Recently, I think the World Bank, IMF, downgraded Zambia's GDP growth prospects to 2.75 from an area projected 4.7. What does that tell you? The economy is in recline.
Contracting.
And the issues are very clear. What has caused that is energy, which has got far-reaching consequences on our productivity and the economic activities. You mentioned things to do with the impact.
Does that mean harder times for the Zambian people?
For Zambian people, in terms of
the economy is contracting?
Barber shops, restaurants, welders, and so on. So this is a shock which I spoke to earlier on. But the question that you should be asking, is there something being done about it? Yes, something is being done. This is something that has been recognized as something that is a priority to this government. What has been done? There are pronouncements that we're getting almost 200 megawatts back into the grid. 100 megawatts being recorded from exports, another 100 from Dollar Energy, another 400 megawatts Zambia-Tanzania power interconnector. Mamba Collieries, 300 megawatts. The financing has been secured. So all these speak at having a permanent solution to...
We're going to be speaking to that if those interventions that government is making are going to produce the desired result.
They will produce the desired result, and there's no doubt about it. Because first of all, we were elected on a promise, right, to the Zambian people. We are going to better their lives, right? We are going to improve in terms of efficiencies, how we conduct business, strong governance, and so on. It will be suicidal for us to go into the election without these things being addressed, right? So we understand the agency around resolving issues around energy, cost of living, fuel, and so on and so forth.
Let's take a break, Mr. Nkhoma. When we're back, we continue the conversation. We take a break. When we're back, we continue the conversation. And on the other side, I pick one or two of your calls that you've been calling.
When the belly's rumbling, hunger's coming. Uncle Joe will give you something. Filling with a natural flavor. Uncle Joe is in there. Smooth, shaky Joe. Shaky, shaky Joe. Smooth, shaky Joe. Smooth. Shaky Joe, fill yourself with goodness.
As a young mom, you're not always sure that you're doing it right. Choosing the best baby care products for your child can sometimes be difficult. So I asked a pediatric nurse for advice, and she recommended BabyMed. Hypoallergenic skincare products specially formulated to suit my baby's fragile and sensitive skin. A complete range of products that makes every baby bath time a moment of tenderness and well-being. BabyMed, his first expert skincare.
The power of perspective brings about fresh thinking. Your perspective will either become your prison or your passport. So it's not what you look at that matters, but how you see it. Always look with fresh eyes. Vatra. Hydrate. Celebrate.
Colgate Herbal is formulated from a unique blend of natural herbs and is scientifically proven to strengthen teeth and keep gums healthy. Try Colgate Herbal, scientifically proven for strong teeth and healthy gums.
Try ask the queen of Zambian media, that is Mtalimwaza, to give you all the drama. And alleged former bestie Zaven shows us a typical recording session. Now, when I go video Alice Musukapa social media that's got a lot of people talking. That and more, join me right here on Diamond TV, talking all things that are trending on social media.
Well, thanks so much for still staying with us. I'm going to be picking your calls. And if you are joining us, before we went on a break, we were looking at the high cost of living and the clear-cut plan for government to address the high cost of living. But in case you're just joining us, we are speaking with the National Road Fund Agency Board Chairman and economist, Mr. Noel Nkhoma, is our guest tonight. Now, before we went on a break, Mr. Nkhoma, we're looking at the plans that government has to address the high cost of living. But there's another very important aspect that I left out when I was speaking about Zambia's debt. Let's talk about Zambia's local debt and the position of the local debt.
Well, like I said, you have people who are claiming that, again, on the local debt, the new Dawn administration. But
before we can go on the local debt, you didn't give me the clear-cut figure in terms of the debt that this government has contracted, the time frame.
On the local debt?
No, just the entire debt.
External debt, I gave you the figure. It's 1.5 billion.
1.5 billion.
Yes. I gave you the figure from the World Bank, IMF, and Africa Development Bank. And the figures are here. 1.5 billion. And what that money has been deployed for. For example, to the 1.5 billion, 393 million was PEPFAR, right? The President's Emergency Program, for HIV and AIDS, 393 million, HIV, drugs, and so on and so forth. So every cent, every debt that has been contracted to the last cent is being accounted for, right? There's money which has gone, for example, from the Africa Development Bank, which is starting Nakonde Road Rehabilitation, of $28.3 million. This is to get the economy going. Money which has gone into aquaculture enterprise. Money which has gone to circuit sanitation program. 1.5 billion. Right? So the figures are here, and not the 6 billion that our colleagues...
So that's external debt?
External debt, yes.
We're going to be coming to local debt, but let's quickly pick our first caller this evening. Thank you so much for joining the conversation tonight. Go ahead with your comment and contribution, Mwene Kayola.
Thank you very much to our government today. We are appreciating, especially on the work that have been done, the roads. I'm one of the transporters from Nakonde to Ndora on a weekly basis. We've seen some change on Nakonde Road, and we're also seeing some change on Ndora Rupata Carried Way. However, we want to ask our leaders to speak on our behalf. That is the message of reducing the cost of doing business should be implemented, not just on the paper, but on the practical aspect. Recently, saw how that increased the fees, although they were reversed. Some of us, we paid, and that's the money that we are supposed to invest to other businesses. We still see issues like councils where we pass through, the Kapiri, the Nakonde. So they've continued increasing some of the fees, especially those that are called local fees. When you're in Nakonde, you need to pay. When you reach somewhere, Kapiri Posh, you need to pay. They continue increasing. I think on a yearly basis, even when the president pronounced a reduction in the cost of doing business. So we need to see that, so that the little ngwes that we are saving, we are able to invest in our businesses and also help our brothers. The last appeal that I would want also to appeal to you, our leader, is that help us with the police, traffic police. They are disturbing businesses. I'll give you an example. Early in the morning, you are delivering your merchandise in town. You are being disturbed, a lot of traffic because they want to check what they want to check. How can we have 10 vehicles of policemen policing just a 50 by 70 square meter of Ndora town? And the whole day from 07 hours to 18 hours, and no one is able to control that. It is disturbing the businesses. When you go to Tanzania, you move from Dar es Salaam to Nakonde. There are so many traffic police officers, but they are using machines. Only the machine will be able to record that you've created an offense. That means they are not disturbing businesses. So we want also that control to be part in Zambia. If we have technology also to support our business, let technology work. We have street robots, we call robots. But you still find the police is standing where the robot tells you to move. The police says no. The robot says don't move. You start arguing. You are delaying the business. So we need these governments and the policies to correspond with today's businesses so that.
All right, thank you so much, Mwene, for coming through. Mr. Nkhoma, would you like to respond to some of the issues?
Yes, I think it's just to take note. What Mr. Kayola is raising are valid issues. And I think what we want is to promote efficiency. Because like what he's rightly put is a transporter, he's created jobs. And for him to be able to sustain those jobs that he has created, sustain his business, the cost of doing business must be that which speaks to affordability and also efficiency. So I've taken note of this, and I think I'll also raise it with the respective
the ease of doing business.
Right.
The ease of doing business as well.
The ease of doing business. It's very important because when the president pronounces himself on the agenda of having a one-stop shop, we should, I think, not have this kind of multiple fee structure. If one, for example, is like what he has rightly said, conveyancing, let's say, from Ndola to Kapiri, there must be a clear kind of predictability in terms of what he or she is expected to pay.
But also,
already on the roads, we have got what to call way bridges.
Yeah.
I assume as a transporter, he also has to pay fees there. There are also toll gates, right? So if we are now going to lump more costs to our business, when they are struggling in this environment, we are basically pushing back progress.
But you say one thing, Mr. Nkhoma, you do the other. I remember very vividly in 2022, the president says that part of the theme for that year was to unlock rigidities in the economy.
Yes.
And the complaint which came was young people. For example, a young girl has got a 10,000 kwacha. They want to begin a business. But by the time they're finishing the registration process, the 10,000 kwacha would have been swallowed.
Yes, I think the president means well. No doubt about it. But we should also recognize the fact that there's a government machinery which takes time to be able to move.
How do we unlock those rigidities?
Yes. So the president's wishes, yes, may be taken on board, but just to be able to achieve what you call closure in terms of what we have set to achieve, it may not be at the pace that we would want to move. Mind you, we're dealing not with the private sector, we're dealing with the government machinery and bureaucracy. So there are some systems which basically, no matter what good intentions you may have, they push back, right? So there are many things that I think are going to to address these things, but it will be done.
We spoke about the local debt. You're giving figures in terms of the local debt.
Yeah, local debt. Mind you, in 2021, December, when new Dawn administration formed government, the local debt was 198 billion kwacha, right? As at January of this year, it has gone to 236 billion. What is the increase? Just about 40 billion. right? So now for someone to say that we have overborrowed more than the previous regime, 40 billion over 2-3 years, it's nothing, right? One, considering the fact that this country could not access capital markets because of default status, right? And you had to resort to domestic instruments to be able to fund government operations, to be able to ensure that the programs that have been laid out are being actualized. So the contraction of debt between 2021 and 2024 is only 40 billion. And part of this, there's a component also of interest.
From the 40 billion?
Yeah. There's also a component of interest. So we found it at 198 billion. We are sitting on 236 billion.
236 billion. So 40 billion.
Yeah, 40 billion. Mind you, government continues to expand. There are so many things that we need to deliver on. There are so many things that we need to do to get the economy back on track.
You've been challenged by the opposition. You've heard the sentiments that the UPND-led government doesn't have an economic recovery plan.
And
ask them to show you one.
No, Andrew, if they say we don't have an economic recovery plan, one, we found a debt default, all right? And we said we were going to unlock it. Is that not an economic recovery plan? How can you implement an economic recovery plan without resolving the rope on your neck? This basically was choking the economy. The debt default was choking the economy. So you cannot have a plan outside this. So what has happened? It has been more or less resolved. That's a plan. That's a economic plan. What happens after that is to begin to post real growth. So you have to deal with the elephant in the room before you talk of any plan.
Before you talk of any plan.
Look at how much time it has taken to achieve what has been achieved. Almost 2 years. Right? So are you telling me that no matter how good our plan was, with the debt burden hanging over our necks, we should have achieved much? We're able to make progress, notwithstanding the debt crisis. We're able to make progress in as far as getting this economy stabilized, that what I've told, consolidated. Yes, challenges are there. We do admit. With hindsight, probably things would have been done differently.
Yeah, I'm sure you saw when the announcement was made by the president, when we structured the first part of our date by the president. There seems to be some celebration that happened in the country. For many of my friends who live in Kalingalinga, perhaps they thought that was debt cancellation, and even now that certain people that think debt restructuring is debt cancellation. Maybe explain those two big terms to people that might understand what is happening.
This is a debt restructuring. It's basically giving you room or headroom to be able to actualize your economic program, right? The creditors are saying they've written off some of the interest, and I think close to about 800 million, if my figures are right. So there is some relief in terms of write-off, right? But not total cancellation, right? So they are saying, yes, you owe us money, but instead of paying in 5 years, we are going to give you an extended tenure to pay.
In small bits.
Yes, in small bits, so that you build capacity and resilience in the economy to be able to sustain the repayments. Right? We have an obligation to repay because we got this money. Right? So, my brothers, yes, who may not understand, this is basically what it's saying. It's saying if Zambia has to grow, instead of 60% of the revenues that the government generates through Zambia Revenue Authority going to debt servicing, will reduce it to 10 or 20%.
Would you agree with people that suggest, Mr. Nkhoma, that you had undermined the challenges that this country, was facing at the time that UPND took over government, and perhaps that's why it's a little bit difficult to unbundle what is happening? For example, you made it seem so easy that fuel, the challenge to reducing the price of fuel is just by merely, removing the middlemen and fuel is going to be cheap. Did you undermine the problems that, Zambia was facing?
I think we had good intentions, right? Good intentions, and I'll explain to you. Andrew, first of all, you understand that your plans, as good as they may be, will be dependent on what you inherit, whether we like it or not, right? I'll give an example. If this was a house and I offer to buy it from you, you are selling this house. You tell me that, look at it, view it outside. When you come inside, you cannot go to the master bedroom because it's private. You cannot go to this room because it's private, but you can just have a casual look at it. You buy it and you discover that actually at the master bedroom, there is no seating. There are no facilities. There are no bathtub. In the other room, things are broken. What you hoped was what you saw from your casual visit is not what you inherit. So, notwithstanding our good intentions, we to some certain degree understood that the economy was in trouble because there was a debt default, right? And we pronounced ourselves on a debt default. We're going to unlock it. We've done that. There was an issue of the fuel crisis. We knew that the fuel price was being massaged. Why? Because there was a default with the Trade and Development Bank to the tune of $800 million. Now, when you talk about the fuel price, you have got a bill of $800 million which you have failed to pay, and how do
$800 million.
$800 million. How do you achieve a reduction in the fuel price when already there's a default on the fuel? What is the priority? You have to pay the suppliers, right? You have to pay the suppliers. But most importantly, you have to begin to generate revenues, grow the economy so that you are able to cushion your citizens.
Did you face pressure from the suppliers when you came into office? For these oil marketing companies?
Yes. I think the Minister of Finance has pronounced himself on that. There's pressure to pay because that is not free money. We consumed the fuel and didn't pay.
Because the argument, I don't know if you've heard this argument, that was the model that the Patriotic Front used, and there was nothing unusual about that particular model.
So to contract suppliers of fuel and not pay about it, that was a model? Is that a model? You contract a service and you decide not to pay for it.
And these oil marketing companies continue to supply because they knew that the government was going to pay them.
They were promising notes that they will be paid. They did it.
And the fact that they had been supplying for over for 10 years.
No. The default on the fuel only materialized, I think, in the last 1 or 2 years, if not 3, of the PF administration. That is when they defaulted on the TDB revolving line of credit.
But who are better, Mr. Nkhoma? A government that chooses to ensure that they cushion the impact that comes with the high cost of living by subsidizing fuel.
Now, with borrowed money where you have got no responsibility to pay back, are you being sincere that we should also follow on what happened? Do you know what it has created to the companies who have supplied and have not been paid? $800 million is not small, right? So, Andrew, let us be sincere in how we do business. If we are going to contract a service, let's pay for it, right?
What would have been the implication if...
let me say one thing, Andrew. There's no government in the world which does not want to which does not want to subsidize its people. But the resource envelope must allow you to do that. Right? You must have surplus to be able to subsidize your people. Do you think that the European government is happy with the cost of fuel? It's not. It's not.
You say that it's cost reflective.
It's cost reflective because we don't have the resources. Right? There's no money. If we had a surplus budget, that would be an issue which did not require any debate. That is why the emphasis is let us stabilize the economy, consolidate, and begin to grow, post-growth, so that you generate sufficient resources to be able to have those interventions for your people. There's no government in the world which wants its people to go hungry, which wants to have a high cost of living for its people, which wants to have expensive fuel for its people. But it's an issue of you can only give that which you have. I cannot promise to give you something which I don't have. I must have it. I must acquire it for me to be able to give you. So when we emphasize on hard work, and productivity, that's exactly what we're talking about. We have to work very hard to grow this economy. And that is how we are going to have prosperity and shared wealth.
As we conclude, I need you to address the people who believe that perhaps where we're coming from under the previous administration, we're better off than the place that we're at this evening.
So much was conceived. So much was conceived. I've just talked about the debt on the fuel, right? $800 billion was conceived. What they did is to massage the price of fuel, tell them bring in fuel, even if you're supplying us at, let's say 20 kwacha per litre, we shall sell it at 17 kwacha per litre. It was conceived. We talked about, someone today was telling me that you found maize in the reserves. I mean, in FRA, you found maize of 1.5, 2 million tons, metric tons of maize, and you sold it. But the farmers were not paid. The farmers were not paid. The maize was procured by FRA, and the farmers were given promissory notes. Who paid those farmers? It was a new Dawn administration. You talk about roads. Here, I've demonstrated. You procure roads, people given contracts, just pay 30%.
Who was supposed to pay these farmers? Because it was during the time of the election when the farmers supplied.
But first of all,
the
farmers delivers maize to FRA. Are you going to wait for 6, 7, 8 months to pay them? That's what happened. Farmers were not paid almost closer to a year. Right? So it had to take an initiative to offload some of that maize, some of it in the export market, to pay farmers.
Clear the debt.
Yeah. So I once again said, I've demonstrated here, roads. We have delivered massive road infrastructure. At what cost? 18 billion is here. $700 billion we have to look for and pay. So we want to be honest with the Zambian people, right? We think that, yes, we're tired of this blame game. We have taken over a government. Let us deal with these issues, right? Let us deal with these issues.
Mr. Noel Nkhoma, thank you so much for being a part of tonight's edition of The Stay. We greatly appreciate for you coming and explaining some of those technicalities and some of the issues that happen in the economy where people can't understand, but you're breaking them down for people to clearly understand.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
On behalf of the entire production crew, thank you so much for watching. My name is Andrew Monza. See you again on Thursday. Good night.
cookies delivered.